Hi, third grade, Mrs. White here. This is going to be your first read aloud in a new theme called Adventures at Sea. So, an adventure is an experience that you have that is usually an exciting experience that has a bit of danger in it. An adventure at sea that I actually had was when I was living in Thailand. We went out to scuba dive in an old boat and we went out to sea, which is like the ocean, and the boat was kind of wobbling and it didn't seem like it was going to float very well. And that was what I was initially worried about. And then we got to the part where we were scuba diving and there was jellyfish all around our boat and we had to jump in the water and I was so scared. So I jumped in and I ended up getting stung by the jellyfish. So all I could think was, how am I going to get out of this water? So I swam and I kind of thought like Finding Nemo, swim on top of the jellyfish. So I swam on top of the jellyfish and got out of the water as quick as I could. So that was my adventure at sea. You may not have had an adventure at sea, but that's okay. That's what you're going to be reading about, is people on the ocean in boats or things like that having an adventure. And that's what we're going to read about today. So what you're going to need to be successful today is your listening ears, your brain, and one thing that's a little bit weird, a stuffed animal, a toy, or a brother or sister. So I have my stuffed animal here. This is Kurt, meet Kurt. He is my sock monkey, and I have now given him to Isaac, and Isaac loves him as a sock monkey. So this is Kurt. He's my stuffed animal. Now you're asking, Miss White, why are you bringing a stuffed animal to your video? And I'll tell you right now, he's going to be my shoulder partner. It's a little weird just talking into the air, so I'm going to talk to Kurt. Sound good? So I'm going to give you a second to pause the video and go get a stuffed animal or a toy or a brother or sister. Go ahead, pause. Perfect. I hope you paused and now you have a stuffed animal. And you just want to sit your stuffed animal to the side until you need it. So the story that we're going to read today is called The Legend of the Underwater Cave. Now, you're not going to be able to see the reading, but you're going to be able to listen. So you want to really listen and kind of think of your own questions that you have as we read. Oh, that brings me to our learning target for today is, I know and understand why readers ask and answer questions as they read. So you're going to be paying attention to Mrs. White and understand why she's stopping and asking herself questions as I read. You're going to be successful when you can tell your stuffed animal why readers ask questions while they read, okay? So and we'll bring this back at the end so you remember to do it. So the story that we're going to read today is The Legend of the Underwater Cave. It begins like this. Old Man Fred began his story. A wise old Chinese man told us the legend of the underwater cave when we were in China. He gave us a map and said that if we could find the legendary cave, there would be great treasure waiting for us. The day the photo was taken, George and I set off on our adventure to find the underwater cave. It would take us 12 days to sail there. We didn't know whether or not we would return. So I'm going to pause there. So as a good reader, I stop and I ask myself questions. If I get confused, if I want to know more about characters, if I want to know what they're doing, and then after I ask the question, I look for the answer in the text, because usually the answer is in the text, and then it helps me understand the text. So that's what I'm going to do, and I already have a question. So my question is, why were they going to go on an adventure if they didn't think they were going to return? If they're not going to return, that means that they could die. Whew, that's scary. So why would they do that? So I'm going to look back in the text, and it says that George and I set off on an adventure. So if they're going off on an adventure, maybe the reason why they don't care if they would come back or not is because they're risk takers, right? So I'm kind of having to infer. Maybe that they're going on this adventure because it says they're going on an adventure. So maybe they're risk takers and they like dangerous adventure. So I stopped, I asked myself a question, and then I found the answer in the text. So I'm going to keep reading. The weather was good up until the 10th day. Then the clouds turned black, and we sailed in a tremendous storm. The waves were huge, tossing the boat about. We had to bail water out of the cabin, or we would have sunk. The wind howled. Then lightning struck the mast and it collapsed. The falling mast must nearly have hit George, who had been trying to save the sails from being torn to shreds in the wind. He jumped out of the way just in time. So I'm going to stop because I have lots of questions that I have. So in here it says, the waves were huge, tossing the boat about. We had to bail out water from the cabin, or we would have sunk. I don't know what bail water out means. Bail water out. So to figure out a word that I don't know, I'm going to re-look inside the text and reread the sentence that I just read to see if maybe I can get some clues and figure it out. The waves were huge, tossing the boat about. We had to bail water out of the cabin, or we would have sunk. So if the waves are huge, so I'm going to really think about this. So actually, and I forgot to get Kurt. So Kurt, if the waves are huge and there's water crashing over on the boat, that means that there's water getting in the boat. And it says, we had to bail water out of the cabin or we would have sunk. So Kurt, why wouldn't they want water in their boat? Kurt says because if you have water in your boat, it'll sink. So what would you do if you had water in your boat and you didn't want to sink? Oh, Kurt knows, I guess. He says that you would want to get the water out. So maybe bail means we're bailing, getting water out of our boat. So that helps me understand the text a lot more because I was really confused with bailing water out. So now I can kind of picture they're in this boat, it's raining really hard, and their boat is filling up with water. So the only thing that they can do is get the water out so that they don't sink. That's what I'm guessing. I'm going to keep reading. Suddenly, a huge wave hit the boat and surged over the deck. I clung to a railing, but the ocean was just too powerful. I remember being swept into the sea. I kicked and kicked to get to the surface. I reached my head up, gasping for air. Another wave crashed over me, pushing me back under the water. So I'm going to stop there because I have some questions. So as a reader, I keep stopping and asking myself questions so that I understand what I'm reading, because this is a hard text, but I can get it. So what I didn't understand is that they're in this horrible storm, and then I kind of am confused about what just happened right now. It says, I kicked and kicked to get to the surface. So if he was kicking and kicking, he was on the boat, wasn't he? Maybe I need to reread that. So was he still on the boat or was he in the water? That's my question. Do you know, Kurt? Oh, Kurt says I need to reread the text to figure it out. So it says, suddenly a huge wave hit the boat and surged over the deck. I clung to the railing, but the ocean was just too powerful. I remember being swept into the sea. Oh, that means that he got pushed into the sea, right? So, and then it says I kicked and kicked and kicked to get to the surface. So because this huge wave hit the boat, he got put into the sea and then he had to swim to the surface, right? So he is no longer on the boat. He's in the water now. Wow, that's scary. I'm going to keep reading. I was being pulled along by a strong current, too strong for me to swim against. I know that word current. I've heard it before. Current is like the flow of water. So strong current means like it's like a really strong water that's maybe pressing you under the water. So I'm going to read that again. I was being pulled along by a strong current, too strong for me to swim against. I rose to the surface again and took another deep breath. I saw something in the water. It was a piece of floating wood, and I grabbed it to help me stay afloat. I couldn't see George anywhere, and I started to panic. So I'm going to stop right now. So I want to know what's happening to this character. So I'm confused about what's happening to the character and what's going on. So he's in the water, and it sounds like it's really hard to breathe, but I'm confused. What did he grab on to stay afloat? I'm going to reread to figure out. I saw something in the water. It was a piece of floating wood. So he grabbed onto a piece of floating wood to stay afloat in the water. So I had to ask myself a question about what was happening in the story so that I could understand what was going on. And then it says I couldn't see George anymore, so I started to panic. So now George is gone. So where's George? That's my next question. So do you know where George is? I don't know where George is. So we're going to have to keep reading to figure out. Let's keep reading. So our question is, where's George? We'll see if we can figure it out. Suddenly, I was spinning, and I realized I was being pulled down into a whirlpool. I was twisting and spinning in circles. I felt dizzy, and I closed my eyes. The whirlpool was too strong. I just about gave up. When I woke up, I found George. We were both trapped in the underwater cave. So my question was, where is George? Do you know where George is? Kurt says, reread the end sentence, because that's where it says, when I woke up, I found George. We were both trapped in the underwater cave. So George was in the underwater cave, right? Yep, he was. He was in the underwater cave. So that's the end of the story. That's how the story ends. So that kind of leaves me questioning what happened to them. So they got stuck in the underwater cave. That's where they were going to find treasure. This is a crazy story. It didn't really have an ending, but that is the end. So what did I do today as a reader? So I read a story, and I asked myself questions as I read. And the reason I asked myself questions was to better understand the text, and then I found the answers in the text. So I asked the questions, found the answers in the text to better understand the text. Does that make sense? Okay, so now to be successful, you have to tell your stuffed animal why readers ask and answer questions when they read. So you are going to go to the exit slip in your Google Classroom and answer why you ask and answer questions as you read. But first, I want you to tell your stuffed animal. So you're going to practice saying it, and then you're going to go and type it. So right now, practice saying why we ask and answer questions as we read. We ask and answer questions as we read. Okay, I told my stuffed animal. I hope you told yours. And then remember, go to your exit slip and go ahead and answer the question, okay? Have a great day. Bye.